Hello and welcome into the Lockdown Wolves podcast. We are live on the POSTCAST following the Timberwolves franchise record-setting win over the Chicago Bulls. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North joins the show to break down the game. The Lockdown Wolves POSTCAST starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Lockdown Wolves podcast, part of the Lockdown Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Lockdown Wolves. I'm joined by Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North. We're talking Wolves, Bulls, and Marney, this was a fun one. The Timberwolves score a franchise record 150 points. They had a season high in 23 made threes for the Wolves. And then also Anthony Edwards with the season high 11 assists, running the offense for most of the game. For the first time in a little while, we have plenty of positives to take from this one.
Man, it was joyous at Target Center tonight. It was kind of crazy because with different guys at different times. Naz Reid scored the first 10 points of the game. And then he ended up leaving with an injury in the second quarter. And then Nate Knight looked like he was shot out of a cannon. It was like every person that touched the court had gold in their fingertips somehow tonight. It was up and down the lineup. It was, there were smiles on that team. Anthony Edwards looked like he had joy filled again, like we've seen him in the past. It was really a fun night for the Wolves.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of those things that have been missing for so much of the season, and after slogging through a tough, difficult, really shorthanded road win on Friday, now hoping to build a little bit of momentum. I thought in general, I mean, the Timberwolves played hard on both. I know they gave up a ton of points too, but I thought they played hard defensively at least, and they offensively, of course, they pushed the pace. They had a big lead in fast break points. They were the team for once that was outworking the opposition. They were running after makes and getting easy buckets. They moved the ball on offense from side to side. The Bulls really struggled with anytime the Wolves actually, we talked about this morning, like it's not ultra complicated. If you change sides of the floor offensively, it makes it more challenging on the defense. It's one of the problems the Wolves have had defensively this year. And Minnesota actually stuck to that in this game. And the Bulls, if the Wolves changed sides of the floor at all, they really struggled. And the Wolves were able to put up some ridiculous shooting numbers in this game and really got whatever they wanted offensively.
Yeah, it was 23 threes was the season high. The shooting percentage, field goal percentage at 65.5%, that was the season high. And Chris Finch was talking about it after the game, like if you're going to make 2 out of every 3 shots, you're going to score a lot of points. You just felt like at some point they were going to have a really cold quarter, but they had some spectacular ends of quarters. Like Anthony Edwards intercepted the pass and hit a 3-pointer at the end of the third. You had that windmill dunk at one point. There were just these spectacular plays throughout, and somehow the shooting percentage just stayed up in the 60s the entire time. It was wild.
Yeah, the Wolves shot, like you said, 2 out of 3, 65.5% on all field goal attempts, which is just insane. 53.5% on 3-point attempts, and they were also 13 of 16 at the line in this game. Just shot great from everywhere on the floor. You mentioned Naz Reid earlier. This was, even though the Wolves kind of led for most of this game, it certainly was still close in the fourth quarter. I mean, the Bulls cut it to 9 early in the fourth quarter. It was still a 13-point game with 5 minutes to play. So this was still, because the Bulls were scoring pretty much at will too, this was a close game, and I thought the Wolves dealt pretty well with adversity. So Naz Reid scores the first 10 points of the game. He's out after the first quarter, doesn't return. Luka Garza had a rough first stint on the floor, and then Nate Knight, got on the floor, and he really came to the rescue in this game. He competed on the glass. He set great screens. He got some dunks, hit a 3, but dealt with the adversity of Naz going out, having that poor first stint for Garza, and then late in the game, the Bulls kind of hanging around, and given what we've seen from the Wolves so far this season, I think we were all kind of waiting, like, is that other shoe going to drop? Of course, the Bulls will hit a couple more threes. This will be a 3-point game. And it never really happened. I thought Minnesota just they kept their composure throughout this game. And again, really just dealt with adversity pretty well, I think.
Agreed. And I would say the Bulls kept hanging around, but they were really, I felt like, comfortably at arm's length hanging around. They never hung around and spurted, really. And I was really surprised at kind of the lack of life that the Bulls showed. I know they're struggling this season. I know they're not the place they wanted to be. I know they don't have the record they want to be, but Zach LaVine played tonight. DeMar DeRozan, Vooch. I mean, they all played, but there wasn't a lot of life. Like even that play at the end of the third quarter that I already talked about, where Anthony Edwards intercepted the pass, then hits this three right before the horn. It was just a tremendous momentum play. I don't know if any of the Chicago Bulls really even tried on that play. It was sort of just like they stole the inbound. And I mean, I don't want to take credit away from the Wolves and what they did tonight. I was just surprised at the lack of real fight from the Bulls. Because I thought there would be a run at some point, and there never was. They hung around, but they kind of always hung about 10 to 15 points back.
Yeah, agreed. And I was surprised looking at the box score that DeMar DeRozan had 29 points. It didn't feel like it in real time. Like it never really felt like he typically plays so well against the Wolves. And now a lot of this, like, again, the Bulls put up 126 and still shot over 50% from the floor themselves. A lot of it was because they just kind of didn't show up defensively. But, LaVine, too, he shot 50% from the floor, had 22 points, 6 assists. But defensively, they really struggled. The Bulls did. And the Wolves, again, to credit the Wolves, they kept the ball moving from side to side. They were really good in pick and roll. Nate Knight, we could talk about him briefly. He was phenomenal in this game, and he played really well in Oklahoma City on Friday too, when there was no Rudy Gobert also, and Naz and Nate Knight kind of split those minutes. And in this game, he put up 16 points in 26 minutes. He only had a couple rebounds, but he was physical in the paint, was competing. There weren't actually that many available rebounds in this game because how well the team shot the ball.
Yeah.
But I thought he played a really well-rounded game at a really important time for the Wolves.
He did, and he had 13 in the second quarter. 13 points in the second quarter for a guy that rarely sees the court. And I will say this, every time Nate Knight plays a game, sometimes even if he comes in with 2.5 minutes left in mop-up time in a game, he plays loud minutes. I don't know what it is about this man's game, but he does not just kind of come in, check into a game for a handful of minutes, and you go, oh, Nate Knight played tonight? It's always just, boom, Nate Knight is playing tonight. Did he have 3 dunks? 2 just thunderous, for sure, dunks. He's at the free throw line. This is what, your 4th big?
Yeah.
4 or 5 is kind of a universal switchable position, whatever. So you go Rudy, Carl, Naz Reid, Nate Knight. I mean, yeah, we're down to 4, and I don't know the status tomorrow. Naz left with like a shoulder blade, kind of shoulder neck impingement or something like that, and his status for tomorrow we don't know. But Rudy missed 2 games already with a sprained ankle, which we were told was a pretty light or mild sprained ankle. I guess Rudy himself said that from the locker room. So maybe if Naz can't go, maybe it's Rudy Gobert back in the lineup. But I don't know. I mean, it could be Nate Knight. And from what we've seen, that man is rolling right now.
Let's talk about the presenting sponsors of tonight's postcast, and that is our friends over at Prize Picks. If you had taken Anthony Edwards over on 3-pointers in this game or assists, setting a career high in assists, you would have been in really good shape. Prize Picks is a ton of fun. You just pick 2 to 6 players. If they'll score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. And you're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, of course, as well as all other sports, really. If you could have done a cross sport with Sunday Night Football and the NFL tonight, along with the Wolves, NHL, college sports. You can make your entries in less than 60 seconds. It's extremely easy. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, they'll give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. One other thing I thought the Wolves dealt with pretty well in this game, and it's easy to get lost in a game in which they scored 150 points, was in the second half, the Bulls started to go to some zone, both in the third quarter and then again in the fourth when the Wolves started to pull away again. I thought the Wolves handled that really well, and it's something we've kind of kept. It's been a reoccurring theme this season that the Wolves have struggled with it and have shown moments where they figure it out. And I thought they did a good job with baseline cuts, finding soft spots in the paint in this one, around the elbows. and did a pretty good job, again, of just not panicking and keeping the ball moving, not trying to play isolation basketball all too often in this game. And when they did, it was basically, those were the few possessions that were empty. It was like the ball was moving, they were getting open threes, and they were making those threes, which of course is the ultimate zone buster, right? Is making open shots. And I thought it was the right combination of off-ball movement and then just simply making open shots in order to beat the zone.
Yeah, and it part of that is just this lineup that the Wolves have on any given moment at any given game right now, with Karl Anthony Towns out and with Rudy Gobert out, because it's a different sort of way of distribution of who's getting the shots and when, because those two in particular need the ball in their hands. They need to be fed. They need for Anthony Edwards or D'Angelo Russell to get them the basketball. And I think that has been on D'Lo and Ant's mind as well. Like, well, I'm not getting it to them enough. And maybe that's why we see some of the force feeding, especially into Rudy. But then you get in a game like this where neither of those two is playing, and we're not going to see Karl for a while yet. So this is going to be the new norm for the Wolves for a while, where it's just this free-flowing of, there isn't so much of, I feel like the isolation ball comes because, well, I'm not going to get as many chances to get mine because these guys need 20 shots each, or, whatever it is. I have to keep them the ball. So let me get a couple of mine here. And I don't mean that in a selfish way.
Right.
I think it's more just a mindset way. It just comes, and that's the product we see. And it's been a real frustration for this team. And we did not see it tonight. I don't think we saw it in Oklahoma City. I don't think we saw it a whole lot on the road trip either. And part of that is just a product of being without two guys that demand the ball so much on offense. And that is not a bad thing.
Right.
It's just that this is the adjustment off of that. And that's not saying, well, wow, the Wolves are so much better without those guys. They're going to hang 150 every night. That's not going to happen because they're not going to shoot 65.5% every night. But when they do, this is what it looks like. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, and it doesn't change the fact that Karl Anthony Towns is still the Wolves' most efficient individual offensive player. And Rudy Gobert is obviously an extremely good player and a big impact player, especially on defense. But it's almost like without having them on the floor, I think this is, I guess, maybe just a different way of a similar thing to what you just said, is that both Russell and Edwards themselves are more comfortable because they're not overthinking that. They're not force feeding Rudy. They're not, the offense, they know they're going to get their shots, like you said. So nobody else on the team shot the ball more than 8 times. D'Lo and Ant combined to shoot 23 of 39 in this game. So, well above 50%. They both were ultra efficient. They combined to shoot 11 of 22 from 3, 50%. Perfect 8 of 8 at the line. D'Lo carried the offense early, and then Ant was kind of the middle of the game. Just a phenomenal game for Anthony Edwards. 37 and 11 plus 7 rebounds and a couple of steals, including that big steal that you alluded to earlier that at the end of the third quarter with the buzzer beater 3. And both of them looked so comfortable. And that to me is the biggest thing. And Ant, I think maybe an unintended benefit, certainly the Wolves would rather have Towns and they would rather have, McLaughlin. And on Friday, they would have rather had D'Angelo Russell than not. But Ant is having the ball in his hands so much more often and has to be getting more comfortable initiating offense and running pick and roll and looking, driving and kicking and even just bringing the ball up the court, which even though he's initiated offense since the start of his NBA career, it's usually as like, hey, this is the set we're running and Ant's going to get the ball in the wing and he's going to run pick and roll and the ball's in his hands. He's actually bringing the ball up the floor, initiating the entire set. Like those types of things, I think long-term are going to be much better for the Wolves and for Ant's career in general.
You're probably right. And it makes me think of what D'Angelo Russell said a handful of games back when he talked about when his game really turned the corner this season, which it's been a good month probably since that happened. But D'Lo said he stopped thinking that he had to be the point guard, and he just started thinking like he needs to be a basketball player and an initiator, but not point guard, because there was such a separation in his head of I have to get that guy the ball here at this point, and it was tying him up. It was like freezing him mentally and physically. And now I feel like they're all kind of unfrozen because if they don't have that, you even talked about Anthony Edwards, Ben, and you're calling him an initiator. And that's what it is. He's bringing the ball up the court a lot, which I guess if you want to label it, makes him the point guard. But really all he's doing is initiating the offense, and he's doing it pretty freely, and he's doing it without a lot of regulations and limitations, and that's what it reminds me of. D'Angelo Russell saying it. Stop thinking that I had to be the point guard, and just said, just play basketball. You're a basketball player. And he has been since, and we've seen it from Anthony Edwards. He's been a basketball player, and a really good one here lately.
Yeah, absolutely. The Wolves turn around and play 24 hours later against the Dallas Mavericks on Monday night. Dallas is on a road trip. They lost in overtime to the Cavs on Saturday, and also is having a disappointing, first third or so of the season. They have an identical record to the Wolves now, 15-15. And the Wolves, of course, on the second night of a back-to-back. Who knows what the status of Naz Reid is? Also, Rudy Gobert. Not really sure what that'll look like. Any final thoughts at all on this one, Marney, or looking ahead?
Well, we don't know the status of Luka Doncic either, because he and Davis Bertans and I don't know, there were 4 guys maybe listed as questionable. And Luka did not play in the last game for Dallas, which was Saturday at Cleveland. So I feel like that's a huge part of Dallas. I mean, the identity kind of stays the same, but Luka Doncic is a massive part of what Dallas does. So if the Wolves can bring even half of this joy and momentum and ball movement and all of the good things we saw in the game tonight, whether we see Dallas with Luka or without will probably make a pretty big difference. But I feel like they might unlock something tonight. I'm hoping it's the start of something.
Yeah, that would it would be really nice if they could kind of carry this. And there's a real rough stretch upcoming here, about a week or so out on the schedule too.
Yeah.
This road trip and everything beyond that. It looks really tough until the first of the year. So that would be outstanding if they could finally gain some long-term momentum. Of course, we'll go live after the game Monday night. Thanks for listening to the Locked On Wolves postcast. We go live after every single Wolves game on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe, and also subscribe and follow to Locked On Wolves on all your favorite audio platforms and YouTube. All of these postcasts are also posted on the Locked On Wolves audio feeds. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.